Hi, everybody. This is Christopher Phillips, Mr. Socrates Cafe. This is my latest iteration Socrates Cafe inspired project called Cafe Aretista. Dennis Dienst has actually read my books. He's one of 7 people. And so an aretista is Chris Phillips's coinage, and it means somebody who strives for the life of arete, which the Greeks of old meant somebody who strives for a life of all-around excellence in all dimensions of life. And to them, that meant not elevating yourself at the expense of others, but helping others become all they can be too. That's part of arete. And so my guest today is the one and only, my brother-in-arms, Dennis K. Dienst, the chair of Democracy Cafe, but more than anything, just the coolest guy I've ever met and a true aretista. Dennis, thank you for being on the program and for coming back safe and sound from China.
You are very welcome, Chris. It's been a fun few years, that's for sure.
Well, you've had an interesting time because you and I are both 60, and you're still what I would call a sublime risk taker. I mean, you were in a comfort zone with the job you had, and yet you decided it was time to move on. And you took a leap that didn't quite work out, but you did it, man. And that says something about you. Tell me about that.
Well, I'd been doing kind of the same thing for a couple years. You know, I knew how to do what I was doing, and I was doing okay. And I just wanted to try something different, something, you know, more challenging. And I went to a company that I felt I could help and work well with, and their situation changed from when I actually got hired to when I left, which was about 8 months, because what they needed totally changed. And I had the skills to do the new job that they needed, but it wasn't something I enjoyed. So I went looking for another job.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so I have known you since about 2002. You came to a presentation of mine in Madison, Wisconsin, after seeing me on Book TV. So we go really far back. I think before I met you, I'm not even sure you had a bachelor's degree yet, or maybe
I did not. Nope.
So suddenly you had a bachelor's degree, then you earned a master's degree. You're thinking about it, EDD. But you're a senior category manager. I mean, you're really, really good at what you do. And you're also this Renaissance guy who's interested in theater, interested in philosophy, interested in so many things. But, you know, this was an area of, you know, you could have stayed in that comfort zone. But you know, you put yourself through an experience that led to a lot of stress, a lot of soul searching.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. You know, it's one of those things where when people are saying you're doing a decent job, you're doing a good job, and yet you don't feel you're doing a good job at all, that weighs on me as a person. So someone else telling me I did a good job, that's one thing. My standards are pretty high, and I feel that with my knowledge, I should be able to accomplish a lot of things. And coming into a new company that was had a lot of rules and a lot of things that they had to go through because of the requirements for the equipment, it just was really, really hard to get things done and to move things ahead. And that was very stressful. It definitely wore on me and made me think a lot about what I wanted and what I enjoyed doing.
Did you lose a little confidence in yourself, a little faith?
Oh yeah. I counted it as I probably had 60% confidence in myself versus 90% by the time I got 4 months into this job. And it's a thing where you want to make it work and you want to keep going, but at the same time, the change in lifestyle, the methods that you need to use in order to keep yourself safe, I'll put it that way, both mentally and physically, that, you know, you can't work 12, 14 hours a day under a stressful situation and expect yourself to be able to recover and remember people's names and remember all the things you're supposed to do and be creative and think about what are the ways to make the job better. And that's basically what I was being asked to do.
I imagine even weekends weren't so enjoyable.
No, weekends were normally 5 or 6 hours during that weekend of work. And it meant never fully disconnecting from the stress. It was, I'd try, but it was always spinning back, in my head, all the things I was not getting done.
What was it like to find yourself in such a wholly unexpected circumstance at a pretty advanced stage in your career?
Yeah, it made me look at, could I retire? So it truly made me say, I just don't want to work for anybody anymore. And I realized that wasn't who I was. So
how did you realize that?
I actually took a couple weekends and just went away. I drove away for the weekend to visit a friend. I flew to Colorado, Denver, for business, but I added 3 days on, and I stopped and talked to a high school friend that I hadn't talked to in 20 years and just described what was happening. And she knows me internally very well, not, my work history, but who I am as a person.
So you sought out people who you felt could sort of provide insight.
Yeah. And because, I talked to my sweetheart about it, my wife about it. We did it probably about 3 or 4 times. And one of those was in the emergency room when I had a heart issue. So that was, a conversation that was a little bit more difficult to have, but, it truly is, you can either whine about it or do something about it. Those are the 2 things you can do. And in my recovery, I learned that just telling people about it and complaining about it doesn't help fix anything. So I went to my boss.
Does it help though, even if it doesn't help fix things? Does it help or not?
It brings the stress level down. For a lot of people, it brings the stress level down. Talking about things that you are interested in brings your stress level down. And, for me, that's part of what Socrates Cafe is for me, is that bringing the boiling pressure, whatever you want to call it, down some.
How does it do that, Dennis?
So for me, listening to other people talk about what they want or what they believe makes me internally take a look kind of what I'm doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing. I like learning and understanding why people believe what they believe and how they got there. It's important for me about how they got there. What did they read? What did they look at? Where did they go? Is as important to me as what they're actually saying, because that helps me understand the person, and it gives me that opportunity to listen and then talk about a response versus try to do my response while they're talking. So it's a big part of it for me.
So Socrates Cafe itself actually was a help.
It was definitely a help. Definitely a help through several of the times I've been, in a difficult situation, that I can go and when I'm in a different city, San Diego, Boston, Pittsburgh, Kansas City. I've gone to Socrates Cafes in all of those when I've gone there for business.
So, and lo and behold, Dennis, you decided, I think the people you were working with, they didn't see you the way you were seeing yourself. And I think they were pretty floored when you said you were leaving.
Yes.
Even asking you what it take to keep you to stay here. Wow.
Yep. They asked if there was anything. Part of what I did to make that easier is tell them that I already accepted a different position. So if you're going to try and negotiate to stay, that's not what you say. You say, I've been offered a position and I'm thinking of it. What do you have for me? And I had gone through, how do I say this? I'd gone through questioning with all the people in control of the organization, from the president to all four of the vice presidents, and had a conversation about what do you see in the future and so forth, without saying anything about thinking of leaving. So then, of course, they told me the truth, where, you know, or what they could tell me, put it that way. And then, you know, when you come back to it, it's like, they said, well, why are you leaving? It says, well, here's what I see the future is for me for the next 6 years. And I don't see it being challenging at all.
So also you were able to find a really good alternative job in very short order, confluence of your skills, of serendipity, of people in your corner and your connections. And you were able to find something really fast, which is not so easy to do.
It's not so easy to do. It was 7 days, one calendar week from when I went looking to when I was hired.
I've never heard of such a thing.
You know, it's a confluence of things, as you said, that the job was posted the day before I went looking. There were 3 people I knew who were in management at this company. And one of the guys, the hiring manager, was a guy just like me, except 2 years older.
Wow.
And he, when I interviewed on the phone, you know, it was, after I interviewed on the phone, it was like, well, hang on a minute, because my potential manager was instant messaging the HR gal saying, how'd it go already, right? And so they brought me in on Monday. So that was a Friday. They brought me in on a Monday. Wednesday, I had an offer.
That's incredible.
So, yeah.
I remember you posting something. You actually referred to my book, A Child at Heart, when you were making this transition. I don't actually remember what you put, but just about how sometimes you take sublime risks and they don't always work out. But if you're open and curious and honest, you know.
Yep. Yeah, for me, that was a big piece of not being set in my ways, not looking at things like, I am a senior category manager. That's the level I'm being compensated at and so forth. But I don't have that title right now at Graco. And they said, is that okay? And I went, well, you're going to pay me? And they went, yeah. I said, I don't care. I said, is there a senior job title? They went, yeah. I said, okay, so I got someplace to be promoted to. I'm good.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and
but you had no idea. You took a leap of faith in yourself, and you know, things can work out in many different ways, or not work out in many different ways, or both.
Yeah.
But here you are. You're still standing. Your head's about to go through the roof of the.
Yeah, and so I went to. I got hired on the basically the 1st of June. I went to a week's vacation the 2nd week of June because we had it planned to Alaska. And then I had some medical stuff to take care of the last week of June. So basically, I signed on and then couldn't be assigned anything for a whole month. And that could have gone a whole different way than it did. So
that's amazing. Dennis, what is your philosophy of life and living?
So I have taken it upon myself to try things I haven't done before, to understand them and try to do them pretty well for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and then go find something else to do and do it for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And I mean, I've done rock climbing, I've built sets for musical theater, done stamp and coin collecting, bowling was another thing that I've done quite a bit of. I read voraciously sometimes, and then not at all other times, because of how life goes. So those are just a few of the things that, you know,
and what's
taken up.
Well, now you have stuck with Socrates Cafe for a really long time.
Yes, sir. It is, because
exception to the rule.
It is the exception to the rule, because it is it varies so much in what happens. And I can go to different, in Minneapolis, I can go to four or five different groups. So they speak and interact differently about the process, following pretty much the same process, but it's different groups of people. So I can get a very broad, different approach to it. And I can walk away from it for a while because there's people that, you know, jump in and help when I'm not there. And I appreciate them so much for helping keeping things running. Yeah, but that's kind of why. And I truly believe Socrates Cafe, that this type of a thing is something that can help anyone want to understand more about the world.
But this, I think, uncommonly perceptive approach to life that you have, it springs from your own circumstances when, you know, things could have gone many different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am. My early life, I am a decent person from a lower middle class family, who hardworking mom and dad, and in 1986, I had 3 DWIs and ready for bankruptcy and a whole bunch of other stuff. In 3 weeks, I lived in my car in 86.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I've hit a lot of bottoms. So I went to get help. And I'm one of the very lucky ones that outpatient helped me enough so that I stayed sober. But it also was, I worked downtown Minneapolis for 9 hours. I was in an hour in a bus to go to downtown St. Paul. I was there for 3 hours of treatment, and then I took a bus back home. So from 7 in the morning till 11 at night, Monday through Friday, there's nothing I could do. So yeah, that was 12 weeks of that. So
And your
it
wife
tends to
has
change
been,
your habits.
But you,
Yeah.
yes, it always fascinates me how things can go many different ways, but it also still speaks about you, even though serendipity did intervene at various junctures. You've told me about people who luckily were the ones on the scene at certain times, but
Mm-hmm.
but it also speaks about your ability, I think, to not so much overcome, but channel these things in ways that give you insight and humility that touches other people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, for me, somewhere around year 3, I started looking at things and just kind of saying thank you to the Great Spirit. Because at that point, I still wasn't thinking about God a whole bunch, but thank you to the Great Spirit when something good happened. And that doing that kind of a thing on a regular basis, I just noticed more often decent things happening to me, and when bad things happen, it was like, oh, that stank, but let's move on. And it got me through a lot of things. And, as you said, it took me 6 years while working full time to get my bachelor's degree finished. I took a very intensive 2-year master's program.
Traveling back and forth to San Diego while you're working full time.
Yep. And, and that helped build a person who has a lot of knowledge and a number of skills that I tend to use to help other people, or to make organizations a little bit better.
So making organizations a little bit better. Tell me about that, because you're one of those rare souls who is able to translate your unique personality, ethos, ethic, and navigate the very real minefields that exist in the business world. Even in the best institutions, there's all these people who try to derail the institution. There's a lot of irrationality, but you still manage to somehow navigate all of that and in ways that are helpful to one and all, including yourself.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
For me, a big part of that is wanting to help companies succeed, even if I'm not the person working there, because I've done that a few times. And working,
but not selling out. You're still Dennis.
Yeah. It's the piece is to to be yourself and to believe that people are trying to do a good job and they have a fear of something. And that's why they make the choices they make. And that's a piece from me that I've learned over the last 20 years. And some of that is sitting in Socrates Cafe and talking to people. Some of it is sitting down and talking with families. Some of it is because I volunteered for 18 years with my church and they're teenagers. So I've sat down with a lot of teenagers and parents and gone, so should we figure out what's going on? You know? And I try my best to treat every interaction that way in a let's gather information, let's figure out what we should do, without jumping too fast, but without analysis paralysis as such. So
That's why Socrates Group can't be Socrates Group without you, and why we need to move forward. That you've got that certain all those insights and experiences are things that will make it everything it can be. Whenever we finally decide
definitely
to pull the trigger and get this thing going. Truly,
we have to find those first 2 customers.
Yeah, we will,
because
but
the company's ready to go.
Yeah, we'll fund some guinea pig. But the thing is, I still, after all these years, just enjoy having this formal sort of podcast or broadcast thing with you, because it gives me this great chance to pick your brain in a way I don't think I would otherwise, but just to sort of stop you, just to make you elaborate your process a little bit more and go on. It's actually very helpful to me.
Well, that's wonderful, because it makes me walk through, because I have a way of meditating and going through things myself, and that is truly when I drive and the music's loud enough that I can't hear anything else, and then I start thinking through, what am I doing, what am I saying, why am I doing what I'm doing, those kind of things. So I'm definitely a victim of the cruising in your car generation in the 70s and 80s.
Drive my car.
Dun, 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 dun.
Now, you and I are actually going to obey the law, but we're going to cruise between San Diego and LA this fall.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It'll be a relaxed cruise, back and forth.
Yeah.
So.
Now, will that be relaxed for you to go the speed limit?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind. It's easier to go the speed limit than do the racetrack thing, but yeah.
I don't know how much you want to say about that or anything.
No, not much.
Okay.
It's just that highway's a racetrack if you want to make it one. I've seen some amazing vehicles go amazingly fast and then get off the freeway right away because they didn't have license plates.
Life is a highway, I'm gonna ride it all night long. I like that.
There you go. And then we can visit Fusion 242 in Laguna Beach, my favorite sushi spot.
I've seen it. It makes my mouth water every time you post photos of it.
Yep. So now I'll give Miki-san a little shout out there.
I'm already excited about it. So Dennis, you have this. I've seen you just touch people's lives through lots of different kinds of gestures. Sometimes in an elevator, just the way you pay attention to somebody without them thinking you're flirting or anything, but you give them something. I don't know. I don't even know how to put a word on it.
It's I learned. So I'm the youngest of 7 children. So I learned early on that getting attention from people was directly related to them noticing you. Now, that's not a good thing for most of my beginning of my life. But at this point in my life, what it does is somewhere around the age of 40, I realized that I get really good feelings. I get really endorphin rush from people smiling because they interact with them, for making someone's day a little bit better. It makes me feel so much better. And it's not a rush and a crash. It's just kind of this, dude, that was good. Dude, that was good. So I look for those things that If I was that person, what would I like to be noticed? As opposed to what do I like? It's if I was that person, what do I think they'd like to be noticed? So
That's extraordinary.
yeah.
Really
And it's a
cool.
lot of fun. I get to talk to a lot of people. I travel alone a lot, and I am not alone very often. I get lonely, but I'm not alone very often because I can talk to pretty much anyone
Yes, you can.
about a wide range of subjects, again, because I've done deep dives into these different things and come back out of them and go, well, that was fun. What do we try next? So,
Well, it's a beautiful thing just to behold you in action and
well,
to
thank
watch
you.
you do it. Thank you. Dennis, thanks so much for your love and friendship. And I always learn so much from you every time we interact in any way.
Well, Chris, you let me think deeper into why I do what I do. So that's a good thing. And I love you very much, bro.
All right, man. To be continued.
To be
I'm going to
continued.
put that on my tombstone. To be continued.
Be continued. Oh, yes.
Either that or if you can't stop, wave. Oh, I have
Can't
maybe a
stop wave. Oh, I like that.
diagonal. Okay, brother. Thanks so much, Ben.
Yep. Bye-bye.